thank you very much for everyone for coming along, and welcome to these Techy Tuesday updates. These are all the updates from April that came in, and I'm going to kind of curate them into this single location so you can actually get them all at once, because we know in your busy lives it's very easy to forget something and lose something or just miss it completely. So hopefully this will address that issue and allow you to make any necessary changes should you need to make any necessary changes. So first one, much stronger data security with it now offering you client-side encryption. And we were talking before I started recording about the fact that I can read all of these words, but I don't fully understand what they mean. I understand what encryption means, but the reality of how this works, I don't know. But you will notice that on the thing that basically allows you to take control of the encryption keys that keep your data secure, and you have control over them. You can actually write them using APIs yourself, apparently. If you're at that level and you want to do it and have complete control of it. But the links on the slide on the top right are links to 5-6 companies that will also manage those encryption keys for you. But it also means that as well as keeping it more secure on the client side, it actually also keeps it more secure from Google. So you can decide whether they've actually got access to the information in those documents as well. So it just gives you an additional level of security on the client side in terms of the encryption. And just to remind you, your data in those doc sheet slides and so on and so forth are encrypted in transit and at rest on the Google servers as well. So you've got, you know, a pretty high level of security in place already, but it just gives you an additional level. And one last little thing about that, it is for Education Plus only. The fundamentals, for example, teaching and learning and standard don't have it. It's just the Education Plus that has that.
Yeah, Paul, your screen seems to have gone a bit funny there.
Funny, pixelated.
In terms of just completely all broken up. So I don't know if you want to come out and go back in, or just try resharing possibly again. I don't know. It's just gone a bit strange.
It looks a bit like, Paul, if you're taking a baseball bat to the screen and giving it a good whack. That's kind of what it looked like, Paul.
Yeah. Thanks for the technical input there, Jamie.
Yeah, well, that's the official technical term, the old baseball bat.
Is that any better?
Yeah, that's looking good. Yeah, that's fine.
It might just be bandwidth issues at mine. So if I turn my camera off, that might because you should still be able to see the screen. It might actually help slightly. Thanks for that. Okay, so that's the first one, Education Plus, as I said. So context-aware access. You can prevent people accessing the admin console by a whole series of different methods now, which I think is quite useful. So you can say only devices that are owned by the domain, only on our network, by location. The interesting one was actually you can actually specify OS for the device. So if the OS is too old and therefore presents a security risk, then you can stop them accessing the admin panel, because of course that increases the risk quite substantially, and also by user identity. This is Education Standard and Education Plus only, but it just seems to me a really useful little way to prevent people accessing it from wherever they like, you know, and for whatever reason. So if you feel the need to manage that way, I mean, I think one of the beauties of the administration of the Google domain is that you can access it from anywhere, but the fact that you can actually specify, you know, these are the people who can do it. But if you've got staff, for example, on help desk admin, so that they can change students' passwords, you can say, well, they don't need to do that in the evening, or they don't need to do that off-site, because they're only going to get a kid asking for a password reset whilst they're in a lesson. So you can decide that it only happens, you know, for that person when they're on your domain, and when they're on your network rather. So it seems to me a really useful series of tools that allow you to manage how to keep your admin panel as secure as possible. So that's a nice additional tool. So you haven't until now had any control over documents that were uploaded onto file upload requests on a Google form. They just launched a beta. The express interest here link on the slides, and Chris will share the slides. will allow you to join the beta to actually trial this out so you can see how it works, but they'll get warnings, and it just gives you that little bit extra control just to alert people to the fact that things are being shared on external Google Forms. So that's forms from another domain and requesting access for whatever it happens to be. So it allows you to protect the data within those documents that little bit better. So that's that one, which is kind of quite a nice little thing. That seems to me quite a significant thing, you know, uploading documents elsewhere to have that level of control is really quite important for you, I think, to keep all your data secure. And like I say, the link to join that beta. And just say something about betas generally. If you think about, we often encourage you to go and give feedback to Google. And that can be, this is broken, which is the most common reason people send feedback. But it can also be a product feature, a feature request. And you can use the same button to do both. And they do read them all. But if you just did a general comment now to Google about something you would like, you are one of billions who are making requests. And in that vast sea of requests, I mean, I don't suppose I'll get billions of requests, but there are billions of users. Your lone voice is not likely to be heard. But in a beta trial, when they're first developing it, you're in a much smaller group of people. So if these beta trials that we present to you are one to think, actually, that'd be really interesting. If you think, well, I'll just see what happens, or I'm glad I'm aware of it, I would say do the next step, register, get onto it, because you're one voice in a much smaller group. So you're much more likely to have the impact you want. And the tool, when it comes out, is much more likely to do the job that you want, because you're offering feedback in a much smaller group. So I'd really encourage you to do that. The one thing to be aware of, if you've never been on a beta trial with Google, you need to be a super admin to register and super admin on the domain to register for a beta trial. But that's perfectly possible to sort, and many of you probably are on the call. So I would actively encourage you to get involved in those. And it also gives you a bit of a heads up ahead of the game, just to see what's coming down the line, which you don't often get really, other than these updates. And it's literally weeks away by the time we do them. So it just gives you a flavour of what's coming up down the line. So I would encourage you to get involved. So you've been able to present from doc sheet slides for a little while. That's been available now, but now you've got the option to just simply join the call as well. So rather than, because I think previously the only option was just to present straight from that slide into the slide deck, and they keep showing you these pictures. I did check, the video feeds weren't there last time I checked, which is last week, but eventually you can see on the little image there, on the little GIF there, that you will get to a stage that when you do join it, you'll see the video feed from the Meet in the document as well as in the Meet, which is, I think, is a great little tool. So you don't need to go anywhere. For your purposes as the admin people, it's on by default, but you can turn it on or off by OU should you want to do that. So I think there seems to be a big move. I think I've said this the last two updates actually, to kind of integration, more and more integration across the apps to make kind of the workflows that bit more seamless. And this is, you know, it's not a significant upgrade only in as much as you haven't got to click on a new tab to go to the Meet to share your screen or to join the Meet, or you can do it all from, and you'll see in the graphics that actually shows you the upcoming calendar events in your calendar. So you can just click on the one that's got the Meet in it and then choose to join. So it's just an efficient workflow. And I think there's a big push to kind of build in as many of these efficiencies as possible. It just makes, you know, all those fractional seconds that you save, I think makes your working day and your user's working day that bit more efficient. Okay. So I'm sure you're aware of the alert center within the admin panel. You get the alerts about all the various things that you might need to take an action on. And there are a couple of others just about to be added, which is the option to wipe a device or to quarantine an email. So within the actual alert itself, you'll get the option to go and action that particular thing. The device wipe, I think, is a really, really good one. That, you know, if you've got a message saying this device has been compromised, or it's, you know, whatever's happening to it, for you to be able to go in and turn it into a brick so that the person that's got it, for whatever reason, can't do anything with it. And that's really handy. And of course, the quarantine email is a key skill, isn't it? Nice not to have to go and again click through multiple places to get to the place to do the thing you need to do. That you can go straight to it from a single click. Just another efficiency. And that is Education Plus only for our purposes. Okay, this is another one of those where I understand each of the words in turn, although I don't understand the abbreviations, but I'm sure that you will. So there's a new port to make the Google Meet experience better on mobile devices. And there's some instructions, and I've left a link in the slide there about configuring your network to allow that additional port to be open. And if it isn't open for whatever reason, then the standard ports, which are the ones listed below, will kick in and they'll get access there, but they won't get the improved experience that you're going to get on a mobile if you actually open this additional port. It's about improving that experience on a mobile device for any meets that you might join on a mobile device. So that's that one. So moving documents, and I'm sure you've done this yourselves. If you've got shared drives on your domain, and moving them from My Drive to shared drives within the admin panel, it's just about an easier and more improved experience for that. Keeping the ID of the document, so it actually makes it easier to reduces the disruption, is the phrase they take. Yeah. Prevent any moves that would exceed shared drive limits. So of course, if you've got limits, particularly now that there are limits on all the different versions of Google Workspace, so to be aware of those is really useful. Using automatic creating shortcuts for any that for whatever reason can't be moved, and that's now the model, isn't it, that you don't get a second copy of the document anywhere. You get a single document in a single place, and then however many shortcut icons that you need. And actually you also get a report, or you can run a report rather, on any documents that couldn't be moved, which is a new feature. That'll be quite nice to have, I think. So that's great, and that's on all the different workspace types. So that's that one. This is quite an interesting one. I was trying to think, actually, does this, because you get so used to on your mobile phone, don't you, that you make a decision about when you update things and so on and so forth. But you can actually set apps at different levels. So you can say, well, this is a high priority mode. We need to have the most up-to-date version of this particular app. Therefore, I'm going to set it as high priority mode. It will automatically update as soon as the developer releases the next version. The postpone mode, if you've got an app that you really like, but historically that maybe the developers missed a couple of things and you updated it and there are glitches which are very frustrating, you can postpone it, and it postpones it for 90 days. And then after the 90 days, it will then be installed. So if you think there might be glitches, or you're a bit nervous of it, or for whatever reason, or you just think it's sensible to postpone it for whatever reason, then you can do that. The end user can go and update it from the Play Store if you've allowed them to do that themselves anyway, even if they're on postpone mode. But after the 90 days with the postpone mode, then it will install anyway. So it just gives you a little bit more control about how the apps behave. And things like Gmail, knowing that you've got the most up-to-date version of that and all that kind of stuff is quite important. Particularly, I mean, with the previous one being about an improved experience on Google Meet, if you haven't got the most up-to-date versions of the various apps, that's going to impact on it. So that's kind of quite useful, which is handy. So that's good. So they've been working on creating on groups quite a bit these last few months of updates. And this now allows you to create a dynamic group, and I presume by dynamic group it means that it will automatically create the group based on the conditions that you set. And some examples are by country, domain, department, or language, but it could be by school if you've got subdomains for each of your schools within a map, for example. So you can decide how you dynamically create those groups. And I'm just thinking about if you've got coming up to the end of the year, you like to have a number of staff changes, to manually go in and adjust all the groups that you use to add in the new staff when they arrive in September. Whereas to do it dynamically, saying everyone within this sub-organisation joins this group, it's a much more sensible way for you to manage it. And I've also added in a link to the list of all the conditions that you can create those dynamic groups with, just in case there are other use cases that you're particularly keen to explore. And that's the conditions link on the slide when Chris sends it out. If you just click on that, you'll see all the different conditions that you can apply to use to create some dynamic groups. So now there are storage limits. Of course, this is quite an important one, that you're able to do this, that you know what usage there is, and you can actually start to manage and view those things with various people. So you can do a whole series of things. This is literally a straight copy and paste from the email that I got about this. So you'll get information about entire storage of your organization, specific users on specific products. So if you've got someone that's holding on to masses of Gmails or got loads and loads of documents that they're collecting in their Google Drive, then you can then go and have a conversation with them. Yeah, who are the biggest users? Who's got the most storage? Any shared drives and what you do with those. And it's the key thing for all this, I think, is actually having the knowledge to be able to interrogate data usage patterns in order that you can actually then go and do something about it. Because if you do get to your limit, then there will be a cost implication. If you're trying to avoid that cost implication, then it's really important that you're ahead of the game and that you're not doing it. And I know, I remember in my last school, I was at 3 years, I think I was there. The number of times, I can't count the number of times we were told that we've all got to go in and delete stuff out of our inbox. We were on Outlook at the time, and it was always that they were full and we'd stopped receiving them before we got the message. They just give us a bit of warning, and we could have cleared a load of stuff out before emails stopped arriving, which is really very frustrating. So that useful new tools to give you better control and better insights into the way the data is being used within your organization, which gives you the tool or gives you the choice to make the actions to address that and get yourself into a better place. So that's what that's all about. Oh, blank slide, don't know what that's about. And those are it. Not very many. There were quite a few for next Monday for the user interface, which I didn't include in these. I'm assuming that you'll catch up on the user interface. The next update for all of those is on for the Techy Tuesdays is Tuesday, 7th of June, day before my birthday. Just saying. And we'll go to any questions if there are any questions. I'll stop sharing that one and come back into the meet. Any comments? Any thoughts? Well, lots of questions, lots of comments in here. Or just discussions about me being wobbly. Yeah. As soon as they manage the storage limits, Jamie, you're quite right. They should have put the storage tools out first and then announced the limit. But there we go.
Yeah, it's a particularly critical one, I suppose, for larger organizations. I'm thinking of some of the really large college groups and universities that we work with. Some of the large universities especially have truly immense amounts of storage that they have to manage. And historically, of course, it was less of an issue, but these days they have to come up with a sustainable approach to storage management and have policies in place and procedures in place to do that. And I think these new tools that are rolling out are going to be a big help with that. And Dave's absolutely right with his comments about the fact that it's a start. It is a start. We get access to a bit more of a roadmap of what's coming down the track, and unfortunately, we can't share all of that because we're under non-disclosure with Google. But it's great to see some of these features that have been planned for a long time starting to roll out, because they will make a massive difference, especially to some of our university clients.
Absolutely. The other thing I often forget to say is that I do them in date order. Generally speaking, the rollout takes 10 to 15 days. They don't do every single domain all at once, which is, I suppose, you think is sensible. So the ones towards the end will be towards the end of last month. So the ones that I started with, you probably will already have seen, but the later ones in this presentation won't appear until this week or next week, depending on where you are on the list. I don't know if there's a logic, it's alphabetical or how it works. I've no idea. But 10 to 15 days is the usual rollout pattern. One or two features, it does take slightly longer, but not a great deal longer, maybe up to 20 days. But 10 to 15 is the most common pattern. And you should see them appearing soon. Any thoughts, any questions from anyone? Anything that you're particularly pleased to see?
I think the conditional access for the admin panel is a timely improvement. It's something that we have been looking at as part of our cybersecurity policy, and to be able to prevent at least one of the routes in through potential malicious users is really beneficial. So to be able to lock it down by country, yes, they can potentially get around that by the use of VPNs. But again, it's just a matter of putting in more and more hurdles so that the casual attacker isn't likely to compromise our domain. If it's somebody who's determined to get in, there are often routes through to avoid some of these protections that are put in place. But I think it's a really timely intervention, particularly with some of the reports that we're getting of kind of the activity from Russian operators. So I was real pleased to see that land.
Excellent. Thanks very much for that, Dave. Yeah, I never even thought about that. That's a really simple one, isn't it? Just set the countries that you can only access it in the UK. And that's a really sensible limiting for any kind of potential malicious attack, which is a great idea. Absolutely. The thing is that with a lot of them, when you look at the list of conditions that you can apply, it does rely on you having those conditions populated in the directory. So if you're, as an organization, someone has not used the directory to fill in details of people, so if it's their first language, if it's their language setting, for example, or if it's their the department, for example, if you've never filled in the department that they are in, if you haven't said these are all in the MFL department, these are all in the music department, and so on and so forth, then of course it won't work. So if you are thinking about using those conditions, you'll need to think about going back to populate some of the directory. And if you're a small school, then that's not such a big deal. But if you are a large organization, I mean, I know Dave's got a very large, well, a medium-sized multi-academy trust, but soon to be much larger.
Mm-hmm.
So if you haven't got those in place, you're in that situation, then it's a much bigger job to do, isn't it?
I think the conditional access is different from the dynamic groups. So you can set conditional access on your admin accounts without having to set up some of those fields that you mentioned there, which are more beneficial for using dynamic groups. So I think we've got two updates there that have got a similar source, but for me, it's that protection of the admin accounts that's really key and very simple to put in place.
Yeah. Is that already live on your domain, Dave?
It is on one of them, but not on the other.
All right. Any other questions? Any thoughts? Any comments about any of the other updates from any of the other visitors today? Any thoughts from you, James, about anything that you're particularly pleased to see?
Yeah, the storage functionality, and just if nobody knows, it's on the homepage of the admin panel, and it'll give you an overview of sort of like who your top user is with the most, and it'll tell you how much storage they're actually using. So it's a good start. Glad to see it. Excellent.
Thanks, James. Good. Well, I think it's silly for us to sit and ponder our navels unless there's a particular need. Anyone got? I'm keen to make sure people have got questions answered if they have any to answer. But updates were relatively quick today, so if there are no other questions, you can post a question in the chat. Don't forget, if you don't want to unmute, if that suits you better. If there are no more, then I'll say thank you very much for coming along today. As before, Chris will send out the slide deck for the month, and as soon as the video is processed, I will upload it to our YouTube channel. Do please subscribe to our YouTube channel if you aren't already subscribing. I'll quickly grab the link just so that you've got it. So all the updates from previous months, right from September, are there. So it's in call messages now, so you can click on the link and go and subscribe if you aren't already. Because don't forget, if you've got subscriptions, then you should be able to get to it that a bit quicker, because it'll be down your left hand side. You won't have to go rooting around for it again. And if we can get to 100, then we can actually start to customize our YouTube channel link, and we can actually make it easier to find, because at the minute it's a strange series of wild characters. So with that, I'll say thank you very much. Lovely to see you all as always, and I will see you on the 7th of June if I don't see you on Monday next week for the user interface updates. Thanks for coming along, everyone.